I'll nominate Debbie Rose.
Call for nomination.
I'll nominate Councillor Panasic.
One leaves.
Hey, I just got wait.
Okay, call for nomination for the third time.
I very much dislike Councillor Gilroy, but I will accept the chair. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Oh, yeah. So we'll ask for an adoption of the agenda. Anybody have an addition to the agenda?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
All those in favor? Okay, we have 2 scheduled delegations. Our first scheduled delegation is STARS. Welcome, Glenda Farden.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's great to see each and every one of you again. I always look forward to seeing you and bringing new information.
There's a mic there.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I understand we all have printouts. Okay. So first, I just would like to say thank you again for continuing to be a part of the municipal initiative. You've been with us since the beginning. It is, it's a partnership that is saving lives, and we are very grateful to you. I want to bring you a little bit of an update before we get started as well, regarding possibility of helipad, as we're still very hopeful at your new hospital. We did kind of tried to move things forward as much as we could, so we did meet with the administration of the hospital, and they have been wonderful to work with, and we have improvised an opportunity to have an area that we can utilize as a temporary site. So we've gotten permission for that, and we've worked with them to have permission for that, so that we have just recently come and did a kind of a follow-up landing zone training and this type of thing with their staff as well. So we hope that in the next week to 2 weeks that we will actually be landing there. But please keep in mind that it is temporary. And so we are hopeful that between, I know that you were working with the MD as well, and I think there was a foundation or something here to try and work towards that. So I encourage you to please continue those talks. We did have an opportunity to speak with the MD as well to kind of let them know that all of this is coming into place, but it is a temporary type of circumstance right now. So hopefully there is opportunity to at least move for a site design, something like, and kind of get the ball rolling so that we can keep our temporary measures in place, knowing that there is something that we're working towards. So with that, it is great news, though, really. We're very, very looking forward to it. You are still in our top 3 communities of the entire north that we service. So it's really vital that we work together to try to complete that, for the future. So let's get started. So starting with the RED patient referral system, I wanted to bring you some new information, some changes that have happened last year. Now first, please keep in mind, this has nothing to do with any changes in the 911 call process. So when a call comes in a 911 and how, all response is dispatched. This is to influence and enhance the patient care side. So STARS has, we have almost 100 transport physicians across the 3 provinces that we now serve, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. So it seemed in the best interest of critical patients that we utilize that high-level expertise that we have in these critical care physicians. So we've implemented through 911 dispatch that now once a call is deemed that it is of a critical nature, that the call response, all the decision making around that patient care, all goes through STARS transport physicians. So they determine the best mode of transport for that patient, they determine the best destination for that patient. So even if the patient ends up going by ground ambulance or fixed wing or STARS, it's the STARS transport emergency physicians who oversee all of the critical care. for critical patients. So that in itself is very much an advancement in the care piece, of patients. Now, we continue to provide that scene-to-bed and a bed-to-bed advantage, and that can greatly reduce the stress, especially on critical and trauma patients. As well, we're very, very proud to continue to have our CAMES accreditation. And what that is a very high-level safety accreditation, and we are one of only 3 medical transport systems in all of Canada that qualify to have this high-level safety accreditation. So we're really super proud of that. So I wanted to bring you a bit of more insight. I know that some of you, more than others, are well known with the interior of the medical helicopter. I wanted to bring you a bit of an insight as to what does a critical care piece entail. There's different levels of care that are available, and as you get into the farther outreaching areas, the rural areas, having this additional option with this critical care piece and bringing that right to the patient is really essential, especially in a lot of trauma situations. So I wanted to bring you a little bit more information about level of care and what we have. This is just some of the pieces of high-level equipment we have. So the Hamilton T1 transport ventilator is our newest piece of equipment we've just acquired, and it is a fully featured ICU ventilator, very much like what you'd find in the tertiary care centers. The difference between this and what we previously had is that this one now accommodates all sizes of patients, adult, pediatric, even down to neonatal. So again, an enhancement in what kind of care we can provide. The iStat lab, now I've spoke about this before, but I never had the opportunity to bring you an actual photo of what that looks like. It's a handheld blood work laboratory. With a couple of drops of blood, we can have instantaneously in the air hemoglobin results, blood gas results, and electrolytes. Blood gases is essential if you're ventilating a patient. You must have those levels. Electrolytes as well, when you are running a lot of very high-level pain, management, then you need to be able to monitor that as well. So this, we can have those blood results instantaneously. And then the EZ-IO drill. Now, a lot of people will cringe about this one. It's only used in very time-sensitive, life-threatening cases, when we must have IV access immediately, especially in a massive trauma situation where you need to get that high-level pain management started immediately. You don't have time to be messing around and saying, oh, is this a good vein, and this type of thing, So this is a little drill that we can use, drill into a shoulder bone or a leg bone. They say it is absolutely no more painful than starting a regular IV, but instantly we can have IV access. So very much, it's very well needed, especially in those life-threatening cases where time is essential. The defibrillator, of course, is in every single helicopter along with a 12-lead ECG. So for heart pacing, which is vital when we're working with cardiac or stroke victims, as well as medications. We have preloaded, ready-to-go medications, high-level narcotics, what you'd find in the tertiary care centers. We carry it right on the helicopter, as well as the thrombolytics. So for stroke victims, as long as we get them, immediately to the nearest CAT scanner to prove that it's the type of stroke that warrants giving the thrombolytic drugs. The physician's kit. Now, 20% of our calls, we do bring a physician along, especially to the rural centers where we may have a patient that's deteriorating rapidly. So we can have that physician-to-physician consultation. And at the same time, so we always bring the physician's kit. So they have the capability of starting a central line in the heart if needed, as well as even inserting a temporary pacemaker if needed.
Did you say 20%?
20% of the calls, yes. Otherwise, we always have the critical care nurse and the advanced life support paramedic. All of the helicopters are equipped exactly the same. So there is no impact to patient care. So everything that I'm showing you, every single helicopter has this availability. They're all equipped with 3-in-1 IV pumps. So we have that capability of running up to 3 separate lines of medication if needed. Oxygen and, of course, resuscitation and suction equipment are always already built into the helicopter. The video laryngoscope, now that is another advancement, one of our newer pieces of equipment, And this is, has the camera and the light on the end of the scope, so making sure that it's past your vocal cords, down into your lungs, not into the stomach, you know, the first time, every time. It shows up on the video screen as well, which is very advantageous in the dark in a moving helicopter at night. And of course, portable ultrasound. Now this is key in diagnosing any kind of collapsed lungs or any kind of internal bleeding in the belly. So once again, when you have very high level trauma situations, massive car accident, this would be key in being able to know exactly what we are dealing with that patient. And of course, universal blood on board. Now, when I last presented that to you, yes, we're very excited about being able to have universal blood on board now, all the helicopters, so across all 3 provinces now. So every helicopter carries universal blood on board. It is blood that can be accepted by any one of us. And we are the first in Canada to bring this life-saving measure right to the scene of an accident. So I wanted to bring you a good news story about that and how blood on board is not only improving patient outcomes, but it is also definitely saving lives. So Jen Oakes, she was one of our more recent STARS very important patients, and she had a boating accident, went under the boat, leg was partially severed, and she would absolutely not be here today if it wasn't for the fact that we were able to give her life-saving multiple blood transfusions en route to the hospital to buy her that extra time so she didn't bleed out. And so she went on last year to represent Canada in the Paralympics in the Canadian Women's Sitting Volleyball Championship, as well has since returned to university and still playing volleyball with a prosthetic leg. So a very good news story on how blood on board can save lives. So let's look at the type of missions. So I want to give you an idea because a lot of the general public still do not realize that majority of every STARS response is for the general public. That is who we serve the most. And so it gives you a good idea. We code by types of missions depending on what was the circumstances surrounding that particular patient. So more than half, more than 50% is medical emergencies. And then motor vehicle collision, trauma-related, recreational accidents, quadding, sledding, that type of thing. Now, on-site workplace, it says 2%. Now, that means that we coded those separately, that these are actual on-site accidents, like at an actual rig site. Or 1% agricultural accidents would be like a heart attack or stroke in the combine, in the field. So those are actual on-site accidents. So please keep in mind that the medical emergencies, motor vehicle collisions, and trauma-related all include both of those type of industry accidents as well, if they were, en route or not specifically on-site. So let's see, where are we going to next? So I want to give you an update as far as budgeting. So STARS continues to be fueled by generosity. Let's look at the expenditure side. So not much has changed from what I previously presented to you as far as expenditures. The 2/3 of the pie still make up the aviation and medical components. The smaller pieces continue to be base operations or dispatch and education and administration. What I want to point out is previously I had presented to you that we were at 14% administration costs. We've had a rough couple of years these last years, as has everyone in Alberta. And so we did what we felt was within our realm of control. And so we kind of downsized a bit. Some people wear 2 hats now, so to speak. And we were able to bring our administration costs down to 9%. So please keep in mind that this is well below the CRA allowable of 35%. So we continue to be very cognizant about what we do have in control and keep costs down. On the funding side, so now currently from the current government, we are receiving 21% government funding. So this is in thousands of dollars, so just roughly over $7 million a year for all 3 bases in Alberta. So this is, it's still a challenge. That leaves 79% to be fundraised. Now, of that 79%, half continues to be generated by our STARS lottery, our STARS calendar campaign, and our site registration program. Now, as I said, those last couple of years have been really tough. We've had less donations come in. We're getting less money from oil and gas, rightfully so. You know, a lot of them had to close their doors. We do understand. But the reality for STARS is that the call volume continues to rise, and costs are going up as well. So now we have less money coming in and more money going out, right? Which is why we're really appealing to our municipalities as well as individuals to help. This year's lottery was the first time in 24 years that we were threatened to not have a sellout. We're the only charity in Canada that's had a sellout 23 years straight. The only one. But we appealed to the general public in the last hour and asked them to please, even if they've already purchased a ticket, would they purchase another ticket? And in the last 24 hours, we sold more than $1 million in tickets in the last 24 hours. So we ended up, our lottery was at 99.7, and as far as we are concerned, that was still a sellout, and we are so grateful to Albertans. So that still leaves, after all of that fundraising, $15 million a year that we have to still find from the generosity of individuals, corporate, and our municipalities. So let's have a look at Big Lakes County. So I've highlighted in red High Prairie, and I've taken out separated the interfacility transfers from your hospital, as well as any kind of scene calls that would have been in your immediate community area, or search and rescue as well. So if we just take into account of High Prairie only, then you're, this is a 7-year average. So if I take that just over the 7 years, you average about 26 missions per year for High Prairie itself. If we're talking about Big Lakes County, then we're averaging 50 per year, almost one a week. So quite significant in your area. As I said, you are one of the top 3 communities and have been consistently for the last 10 years that the Grand Prairie base has been here, that we serve.
So is that 3 out of Alberta, or is that 3 out of the 3 provinces? Just out of the Grand Prairie base.
This is just out of the Grand Prairie base. So to give an idea, if you were talking all of Alberta, we've flown over 1,800 missions a year in the 3 bases. So this is just serving, your area out of Grand Prairie base. So when we're talking about, if we talk about Big Lakes County, like our little corner of the world, so to speak, that's quite significant at 50 missions per year. So I want to give you an idea of what would that really kind of in the dollar value represent if we were talking just mission-related costs only, nothing else that entails STARS or what's required in order to even have a base to serve this area. Just the costs around 50 missions per year would represent for your area and your residents, as well as Big Lakes County residents, about $375,000 a year of service from STARS. So it's always important, you've been a part of the municipal initiative, and it's all about working with our neighbors and partnering with our neighbors, doing everything we can as Albertans to continue to keep this service. So now I wanted to give you an idea of, let's talk of our little corner of Alberta, what would that represent. So now we're looking on an average of about 190 missions per year, because we all do travel. We go into different areas, within our corner of the world. No one is exempt from illness or injury at some point in time. So now we're looking at about 3.6 missions every week. So that could be any of us going, throughout these other neighboring areas, right? And now we look at a mission-related cost value for services of over $1.4 million a year. And we're just talking a tiny little part of Alberta for ourselves. So, if we look at the Alberta Municipal Initiative map, I wanted to give you an idea where we're at now that, I've been working with municipalities since the very beginning. Now I am working with municipalities across the province. And we are currently at just approaching 90% of all rural municipalities are on board. and giving anywhere from a $2 up to $65 per capita and everything in between. I know that you are one of our leaders in the municipal and the urban municipalities as far as your contributions. So we currently have 6 municipal leaders. It's very heartwarming to know that all 6 of those municipal leaders that have reached monumental goals of either $500,000 or $1 million are all from the north. Every single one of them. So they all have their logos represented on all the helicopters that serve Alberta. And last year, I'm very pleased to report that we also had our very first First Nations leader step forward that said they heard through from their rural municipality and their town that we had this municipal initiative. So they invited me to come and give them the information, and they came on board. So Sturgeon Lake is our very first First Nations that has come on board and joined municipalities. So I'm going to continue to work with their chief and hopefully, reach out to some of the other neighboring ones as well. Now the next map shows you with the yellow stars. Now these are the urbans that have joined on. So you can see fully that in the northern area, we have unanimous support from every town and every village basically coming on board. And as well as 7 districts in northeastern BC that are also have been giving for the last 10 years and have reached over $1 million in giving amongst the 7 of them. So urban municipalities, and you are somewhere in the middle there between the $2 per capita and $4.75 per capita as far as urbans are contributing. So collectively right now, with together, rural and urban, we are generating $1.7 million a year in sustainability, and that is still growing. So that is a wonderful thing as far as how we can take away some of that $15 million a year that we have to find. So this all goes towards that. So I want to thank you again for being our partner in saving lives since 2008. Thank you for helping us to ensure the safety and quality of life for your residents. And at the same time, we really thank you for helping us to protect and preserve stars for all of us as Albertans and for our future generations. We've been serving now Alberta for this year will be 32 years in total, from starting in Calgary. And we want to look and have a sustainability piece for the next 32 years. So you're a significant part of that. Now I had talked with Brian as well, because I could not find any documentation, I think, with the transition of CAOs as to, I am pretty sure that I had previously asked you for a 3-year commitment, which would have been 2016, 17, and 18, but we are going to look into that. So I have an ask in here in case we don't find that I would still like to go forward and request that you will continue at your $8,000 per year that you have been doing for many years now, and ask for a 4-year term. So if it's in place that we do have, fine, we have a 3-year term, then that's fine. I will continue to come each year and give you your annual updates, and once that is expired, then I will put a new request on the table. So that's just why that's in there. So one other piece I wanted to give you some information on is the fact that I'm having a lot of our long-term municipalities that have been with us for many, many years, and their contributions are just ongoing. So they have now decided that in a way they are recognizing stars as part of their emergency protective services. And they've made a standing motion that now their contribution is just added to their protective services budget each year. So that gives you the fact that you know exactly what you're counting on each year, and it gives us that sustainability piece as well. So I would like to ask for consideration of that once we find out where we stand, whether you would consider increasing your protective services budget by $8,000 to include us as part of that on your annual budget. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have questions for Councillor Gilroy?
I want to assure you that we do have our Health Foundation, High Prairie and District Health Foundation, has money set aside that the generous community has been raising over the years. Yes. For a STARS helipad, or at least a helicopter helipad.
Yes.
And that if we can all work together on that with admin. I'm sure this community, being the kind of community it is, will definitely step up to the plate. And so please feel free to approach our community association as well to when it comes to planning and engineering and stuff like that, because it would be very important to keep on the same page for that.
Oh, definitely. We had the similar conversation with the Reeve at the AMD to say that we would appreciate being kept in the loop. I've contacted them, and I can as well pass on the aviation base manager's contact information to you as well. So I'm assuming that you will have some joint meetings or something as you go forward. And just to ensure that there's certain things that need to be considered in order to keep that spot, that it will eventually evolve to a certified pad. And in the meantime, on the interim, that there is no additional building and these types of things in certain areas, otherwise that conflicts. And then we will have no jurisdiction over that because that's Transport Canada. So right now, we currently, the way things stand right now, we have that permission for that temporary site, while we're building towards the pad.
When you say temporary, are there any restrictions on the number of flights in and out that you can do when you say the temporary one?
I don't believe so at this time. I think they have agreed to work with us, and once we, had the meetings with the hospital administrator and all of that as well. So it's deemed that, it is safe, and we've already come in and done the training and everything that was required as well with them, so that there is a plan in place. There's just a couple of other items, and I'm not sure what they are, but that have to be finalized in order that, we can start landing there. But everything's basically in place, and as long as there's no other building or adding a playground or these types of things that would conflict, then we can use it, for however long, as long as we can prove that there's a plan in place going forward, which is why we would need to, hopefully ask you that you would be looking at some specific site design, because that would be the first step as far as going forward, that Transport Canada would recognize as there's progress.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Panasic.
A couple of questions. I'm just trying to think of, you're talking about new buildings, and we're looking at some new developments sort of by the hospital. Would
Okay.
those impact the helipad
Yes.
in what they're proposing to build there? And
We would ask to please let us know ahead of time before any decisions are made, so that we can help guide you on what areas would be conflicting. Because if it happened to be in certain flight path, then that's as much as I know, but
Oh, okay.
certain flight paths you cannot compromise, and especially when you get to where, say like Grand Prairie, there's only one flight path in and one out. So, you wouldn't want to compromise if there is only one or two and then put it to none, because then you will never have a helipad. So that's where we ask, please, I will pass on, I'll send to Brian, our aviation base managers, and he can work with you too, if you could share, just so, we want to help you and help your community to protect for the years to come, that, we can be of service.
And I'm looking on your thing here, and it says High Prairie Interfacility,
Mhm.
those as missions. Is that like
Yes, those
coming,
were,
picking up at the hospital and taking them to
yes.
another hospital type?
Yes, to higher level of care.
Yeah, higher
So
level.
yes, interfacility would be direct transfers to your hospital, or from your hospital. But currently, these would have been going, like we would have a Grand Ambulance transfer to the airport.
Yeah.
So just give you a little bit of information as far as, let's use Valley View, for example, once they built their helipad. And then following that, there was a helipad that Alberta Health Services built for Grand Cache, being that it is so remote, and it was on their helipad priority list. And we have seen significant change in their statistics. once the helipads were in place, because then all of a sudden everything is in place, you know, where we can better serve that community. We don't have to use where, you don't have to call out the RCMP, you don't have to have a call out charge for the fire department, because it is a certified pad, meaning that we don't need to tie up all those other resources, you know, in order to land. So that makes a significant difference. And overall, you know, for emergency preparedness, especially for your community and area, like it's not just, I want to make sure this is clear, it's not just a STARS helipad. It would be a helipad that would accommodate basically even the larger helicopters, you know, forestry could come in as well. It would be a helipad that could accommodate all, so that it would even be of great value to your community for emergency preparedness. So if you're looking at the long range, you know, advantages for your community.
Yeah, right now it's about 15 per year on an average, that 7-year average.
Yes.
Pickups, yeah.
For in a facility.
Yeah.
And then when you combine that with your scene calls and your search and rescue in your area as well, that's how I came up with about 26 per year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just to let council know that I've seen in the initial drawings of the hospital site, there is a flight path already deemed, and the helipad is proposed to be located on the south side of the hospital, and the flight path is on the southeast direction. So where the campsite kitchen is located, it's even farther to the north than that. It goes on. Yes, it goes on an angle to the south.
So that's not gonna get impacted
No.
by our developments there in the
Okay, the thing to remember is when you have flight path, and I don't know a lot of this, so please don't quote me, but they cannot be flying over buildings or persons or like a playground or anything. They can't fly over anything to reach that helipad. So it has to be a clear direction that you're just coming over, like bare ground, pasture, no buildings. That's where, you know, it's all, Transport Canada governs all that airspace and where we are allowed to fly in or out of.
So move that cow.
So all that's in the way now is a cow?
Cow horses.
So right now, there isn't anything that is in that flight path, eh? And have we, I thought we were already at design. I thought we had already applied to, no, nothing? No, you don't know anything about a design yet?
They just said that there was, through the foundation, I believe that there was monies to
We haven't got a design
implement
yet.
that.
We're waiting for permission to do that.
So, I don't know, is there plans to have a joint meeting with the MDE or?
Is it on intermunicipal?
No, okay, so it's,
So it's probably being handled by the foundation still.
okay,
Yeah, because remember the REEV is part of the foundation, so that's where we connect with both, just at that
Good.
particular
Okay.
base level.
okay, but it is actually then on town land?
The
The yes, okay, good, because I really wasn't sure and I wanted to ask you that as well.
Do you
So,
get any federal money?
Do we get federal money? We've been working towards that for a very long time and working with our MP as well. And I think that this opportunity with the First Nations coming up, you know, is our first little maybe foothold into recognizing how maybe they can be a little bit a part of it. I think the biggest challenge right now is the fact that we are a provincial service. So, you know, we are already receiving provincial funding and not so much recognized on a federal type of level. But that doesn't mean that we continue to try and, you know, have those discussions and see if there's some way forward.
So do you have any, have had any opportunity to have conversations with any of the local First Nations or Métis?
Not in your area.
Not in our area.
No, I'm hopeful. The current chief of the Sturgeon Lake is also the chief of the Treaty 8. So he is looking and said that he will work with me in hopefully helping me to get an
Have some
opportunity
conversations,
to
yeah.
get in front of all Treaty 8, hopefully. So we'll, one step at a time. I'm just very proud that they decided that they wanted to be the leader.
No, I think that's awesome. And I'm positive that we agreed to a 3-year agreement. Does anybody remember that?
I just didn't have and I think the documentation just got lost in the shuffle or the mail, between.
So did you say there was a few municipalities that have already put it into their protective services?
Yes, they have switched and went, instead of continuing to do multi-year pledges, have just made a standing motion, and then, just let me know that this is going to be their dollar value that they're staying at, and that they put that into their protective services budget on an annual and of course I'm still going to come and see you each year. It's just the fact then that we're not always re-asking, and you're not always having to deliberate, and then there's always opportunities, especially some councils wanted that in place because they've been such long-term supporters, and there's been some changeover with elections and things like that, and then you have new people that don't understand the value and the reasoning behind it. And so in this way, if we're recognized as part of your protective services, then it's already in your budgets. And then I just will continue to bring you your annual updates. So I just kindly ask you for that consideration.
Any other questions? Comments?
Thank you so much. I brought you
Thank
another
you very much for your
calendar,
time.
and next month is the launch of the brand new calendars coming out for next year, and then some additional information as well, as always. So thank you so much for your time. It's always great to see each one of you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Keep in touch.
So we have one more scheduled delegation. Welcome, Amanda Matter from ATCO.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're having everybody up, Amanda? Kathy?
Can I hold one more chair? Is
You
that
sure
okay?
can, yeah.
Watch out for that light there. You know what happened about stars, okay, so be careful.
I just keep stars here.
Just in case, then, to stay. No.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was watching that all along.
Well, thank you very much for having us. We love getting to come and chat with you folks about a few things. So we're going to start off on our franchise report. We come in every year to talk about it, and keeping in mind it's the year previous, right? So it's 2016. Kathy Gill heard that I was coming here tonight, and she was so excited. She volunteered to come and have a chat with you folks. So,
Oh, I couldn't wait.
yeah.
Awesome.
So her and Rick are going to go over the information that we usually go over with you guys every year, and then I'll talk about the LED lights.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thank you guys. So first of all, we'll talk about the 2016 franchise fees that ATCO Electric collected for you last year at 6.25%. We collected $182,772.41. Based on that revenue, a franchise fee increase of 1% would increase your fee payments by $65,798.06 per year.
So we talk about that once a year. If you guys remember, I send Brian an email with this fancy spreadsheet and calculations and what it would look like if there was an increase and how much that would be for each ratepayer. So that's usually August, September. So just keeping in mind that that's the dollar amount if you choose to increase later this year for 2018's fees.
Right, because 2017 will be at 7.5%. Okay, in 2016, ATCO completed patrol and consenting program as well as the brushing mechanical program within the town of Pike Prairie. For 2017, we have a DAVID inspection program scheduled.
So that is our streetlights, if you're wondering. So we come in and we use like an ultrasound machine and we check the streetlights. And typically what happens is during our DAVID inspection, 1% of our lights, based on the history of the company and data that we have, fail what's called a red tag. So they need to be replaced immediately for safety concerns. And then about 3.5% lights fail what's called white tag, and we have 2 years to replace that. Now you guys are on the fully invested rate, so there is no out-of-pocket expense. We would just let you know, hey, these lights have failed inspection and we're gonna come in and replace them and work with you as far as, you know, the work progress, but there would be no cost for that because you're on the invested rate.
And that's a good point too, because, you know, we're actually, even with this David inspection program we found lately, we've had some situations in other communities now where we're actually finding that some of the bases are corroding from an anode bed around them and stuff like that. We're finding in a couple of these spots that they're very, it's happening more often than not. So, you know, we're finding good things by doing these inspections in the community as well. So, and that's a serious hazard, like, you know, if you have these things and they're rotten and they're gonna fall over on the ground, like, it could land on a car or a person or whatever, you know, especially on a windy day like we had yesterday. You never know, right?
But that's not happening.
No, that's why we do these programs, right?
Yeah.
Not in our community.
No.
I'd go vehicles underneath each one.
Yeah.
Okay. The one
But
other,
keeping in mind though, you are in the fully invested rate,
Yeah.
which is the reason when you guys converted, I believe it was 2013,
Yeah.
is that there is no out-of-pocket expense for any of those types of repairs or replacements.
okay, so the next one I want to talk about here is, I'm going to talk a little bit about the system reliability that we talk about every year to you guys there, and we have two different ways we measure it. We go by frequency and duration, and that's the standard that, you know, they follow throughout Canada. So anyway, you know, kind of about our system reliability, you know, we do have power outages that occur for lots of reasons. Most common causes of unplanned outages are weather, third-party contacts with the electrical system. And in these instances, our ATCO electric service people are on the job day and night to restore the power as soon as possible. So, you know, that's one factor with reliability. And then also sometimes planned outages are need to safely conduct maintenance and repair work on the system or build new electrical line. We try to avoid this when we can. We give the customers as much notice as possible. You know, that's another thing that we've been working on in 2016 and 17 as well, is we've been in the communities here changing what they call the porcelain switches that we talked to you about last year as well. And we've been going to the businesses, scheduling them on planned outages and making sure that people are aware that we're doing this as well. And then we do also record reliability information by feeder lines, and the information for each line that contains a mixture of both urban and rural events. This may result in a higher number of outages reported than actually experienced in your community. I'll explain that a little bit more in a second here. So basically in the town of High Prairie here, there's 3 main feeders supplying the town. And this report is based on the overall performance of these lines. So like we have like I was saying, there's 2 different ones. There's the system average interruption frequency index. So that's the frequency one. And then the system average interruption duration index. That's the other one. So like I was saying, there's the 3 lines in town here. So what we have is we have one main one that feeds the town here. It's a dedicated line that our planning engineers look at and find that it supports the community the best. And that's 5L105 line. And our 5L105 line feeds probably, I want to say 95% of the community. It's a very high number of it. And so in 2016, the duration on that feeder averaged per customer about 1.82 customers experienced an outage in 2016. And the frequency, the frequency was 0.81, pardon me, and the duration was 1.82 hours. So in all, that's not too bad. And then we have another feeder here, which we call 5L154 line, and that's the other one that it comes into town, comes in and around town, and it feeds basically to the tie to the hospital in that area. And that's where, like, you know, one transformer there is kind of split by one, and one is split by one off of 5L105. It's kind of contingency for that. But that line has very, very few customers on it, except for the alternate feed thing. So the duration there on that one, we only experienced 0.15 of an hour for duration on that one on an average, and the frequency per customer was only like 0.07, so it was very small in 2016.
The safety and SAIDI numbers for High Prairie in 2016 are significantly lower than a lot of our other communities. We had, I think we saw some gains with a lot of the work that we've done with the porcelain switches and some of the maintenance that we've done over the last couple of years, because it's been really good.
That's right. Yeah, and we do have one other line in the community here that does tie to the community, but it only feeds, like it only picks up maybe about 16 residential customers. And it's one that feeds out north into the rural. And that one there, there was a little bit different statistics on it. And some of this would definitely probably have shown up from when we had that spring snowstorm.
A May long weekend snowstorm?
Yeah. And so that one there, on the duration of that one, there was outages that were like 13.25 hours on that one.
I remember the Facebook posts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was just, timing to get out there and stuff. No excuses.
But
It's
keeping
just-
things in perspective though, for that weekend, we had, throughout our service territories, close to 30,000 customers off power. In some areas, they were off for 3 days.
Yeah.
So, 13 sounds like a lot,
It's-
but when there's a huge event like that, those things happen. When you've got hundreds of trees that are buckled over, and I mean, at the time Fort McMurray fires were happening, so literally half of our workforce was gone to Fort McMurray. It was like Rick and I trying to keep the lights on. So it's not too terrible.
That's right. And and on the other side of that, though, the frequency in that was only like it was like each customer seen it 2.67 times, through the year. So it wasn't like they experienced this every day. It was here and there. So actually, in our ATCO electric system here, so our average in 2016, which there was like Amanda was saying, there was a lot of power outages and a lot of different events that happened that year. So the duration average was 19.16. So that was,
and that's Fort McMurray. That is basically due to that huge wildfire, right? So we sometimes will be able to apply through the Alberta Utilities Commission and the energy regulator to bring out some of those data, like those big natural disaster storms. However, at the time of the report, we haven't scrubbed that information out, so I would imagine that will come down a bit. But we were hit pretty hard all over the province last year. So
yeah, it looked, it was what it is. But the frequency of that was still only, it was under, like the ATCO electric frequency was still under 2, it was 1.96. So, so the numbers, people seen that, but it was only like maybe just about twice a year maybe, right? Yeah. So, with that being said, there's a lot that I feel there's a lot that goes on with the, the maintenance and the planned outages that we do in the communities. Right now we're planning on, and I think in the future there may be more live line stuff with it, but right now we're taking outages and we're changing these switches. We had an outage in town here a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. And what happened was the switch broke behind the old Penn West shop, and then that took out a big portion of 105 line. And there were switches that we had in the schedule. So, but we're working with the businesses. We're trying to get in there between 6 and 8 in the morning, change them out, so it doesn't affect them as well.
we're trying to negotiate as much as possible. And I mean, obviously, sometimes we get some kickback. Nobody wants their power out, but in the end, it only helps. Recently we had a customer at Penn West in Swan Hills, and they did not want to give us an outage. We argued with them for months, and sure enough, 2 days later, we have an outage in their house. Their whole plant is out, and it was the exact switch. So we just try to reinforce that message with our customers that it does suck, we get it, we don't want to turn your power off, but we need to do this maintenance so that we're not going to have these unplanned outages. At least we're letting you know, and you can adjust your business. Thank you, Kathy. So I think it's been going really well, overall.
So do you have any questions on that though, or do you want to ask them around that right now? Okay.
Okay. Just wanted to update you on our street lights for 2016. All of our lights were repaired within the 2-week target. If we get reports that a street light is out for more than 2 weeks, then we end up having to give you a 2-month credit of the delivery charges, which did not happen. There were no underlying. Sorry. Sorry about that. No underground streetlight cable breaks in 2016, and our next pole test is scheduled for 2019. to the only last thing I have to talk to you about is customer complaints. So we had one complaint recorded in 2016 about damages after an unplanned underground break, which we were not negligent, so we were not liable for any damages in that incident.
So our terms and conditions are pretty solid in that, you know, we can't guarantee power. Obviously, we do everything in our power to keep the lights on, but occasionally those things happen, and it is sort of an expectation that people have some type of backup solution or protection on their side. So we would pay out a damage claim if we were negligent in some way. However, underground breaks happen, right? There's wear and tear in our system, so we can't be liable for that information. And so this customer wasn't happy about that. We went over our terms and conditions, which is published externally, and at the end of the day, we came to a resolution. Maybe not the one he was looking for, but that was the only official complaint that we had lodged.
Was that a customer in town?
Yes. You betcha. It happens. Not everybody loves us.
Now you're using candles. We are not.
So any questions with regards to the franchise report? I mean, this information, you guys know it, we come every year. It doesn't really change significantly from year to year, but if you have any questions, now's the time.
Any questions on the franchise? Councillor Gilroy.
With the replacement of the lights, I forgot whether or not are you replacing with the same type, or were you automatically going to some of the LEDs?
So last year when I came to talk to you guys, were just switching from HPS. We were phasing those out. So we do not have any more material to replace HPS. So as lights fail, we will be replacing them with LED heads.
And how does that, with changing that, is that going to improve the quality of the of the
You betcha.
vision
I'm
and light
gonna
up
show
there?
Yeah, no, it is. We've had a lot of really positive feedback from most of our communities, and a lot have decided to switch out their whole community at once. But even the one-of lights here and there, they really like it. It's quite different, and you'll see when we plug it in, there is a big difference, but people really, really like them, especially in the residential areas, because it doesn't give you any backlight. So it really lights what you want. So you're paying for a street light, you want it to light up the street and not right in your bedroom window. So we've had really, really positive feedback on them.
Yeah, one thing with the lights too, we're gonna be like right away here in our yard because of we've had a lot of visitors in the evening. So we've actually put a bunch of poles in there, and we're putting a bunch of LED in our yard around the back end, and it'd be really interesting to see when we light that up. That'll be a really, really good indicator on how they work.
And on the fully invested rate, are the majority of municipalities using that, or is there a big, are you seeing a big cost difference for communities that don't?
There are very few communities in ECHO service territories that are not on the fully invested rate. I think we have 5 or 7 of the 240 communities we serve that are not on the invested rate. A lot of people a lot of municipalities made this switch because it is easier for budgeting purposes, right? So we come in and we do DAVID inspection. I'm going to use our neighbors here at Slave Lake, where they've got, say, 900 lights, and all of a sudden 3.5% of lights is a significant cost if you average the price between $6,000 to $10,000 to do the light. So you could be replacing 20 lights. Not every municipality has that kind of cash floating around to do that. So for budgeting purposes, a lot of people have switched over to the invested rate. Plus then, you're subject to Schedule C, which is what Kathy was talking about. If we don't repair a light within the 2 weeks, we, give you a check. We have to fix underground breaks within the 2 weeks. So there is a bit more reporting and requirements once we are on the fully invested rate. So yeah, 7 communities, that's it.
Yeah, because it's not just the lights, it's the cable too.
Which is a big cost,
Yeah,
right?
like that can be very costly when the cable starts to go right.
We had,
Sorry.
this is like ping pong over here.
You're falling apart.
Fox Creek recently switched over, and it was due to, they had about a $300,000 project to replace underground cable that had met end of life. So they were like, okay, it's time for us to switch over. So yeah, it's peace of mind. It's for budgeting purposes, all of that. Yeah. So we're hoping to get the other 7 communities switched over to the investor rate as well. Should we talk LED?
I'm excited.
I know, me too. I knew you guys were going to be excited. How could you not when you come walking in with
Yeah.
this?
Probably would have been on already.
So I'm not going to go through I think you guys have seen the presentation. There's about 5 million slides in here. So I'm just going to give you the high-level overview of ATCO Electric and LED lights. So they are not brand new to our company. We've been working with LED lights for about, I guess, 7 years now. 2011 is when we did our first pilot. And we did that in Jasper. And after that, we did another pilot in Fort McMurray in 2013. And then 2015, we did a new pilot in Grand Prairie where we tested out 7 different LED vendors. So we had kind of had a preferred vendor before. The cost was significantly higher than an HPS light, like more than triple. So of course, I mean, there's been leaps and bounds in the LED world over the last couple of years. So in 2015, we really hammered it out. We talked with the 7 different vendors, and we came up with our new ATCO standard, which is this lovely baby right here, which is a GE Evolve. So a lot sleeker, really nice, right?
But how did the semi-trucks go underneath it?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot better, right? Now there's not that bulb, so they just skin back. So from the pilot project, it was really clear that the GE Evolve was the best LED because the cost, it was almost similar, almost identical really in the HPS cost. The warranty was fantastic. GE offered us a 10-year warranty on these bad boys. The aesthetics, so the lighting pattern looked really, really great. Ease of installation, all we have to do is pretty much go to light and replace the head and pop it back on. So it's really easy for us to convert from the HPS to LED. We don't have to take out the whole davit. And then the perceived quality. So of those 7 sections in Grand Prairie, it had the most votes, essentially. So that's kind of how we landed on the GE Evolve. The other big driver in making that decision was the IDA, which is the International Dark Sky Association. GE Evolve, and this standard is the only one of its kind that meets the night sky minimum glare and reduces, this one's always funny, reduces effects on wildlife. Do we care about that much in the town? I'm not sure, but they say that it doesn't affect their sleep patterns as much as some of the other LED lights. So the way that you measure LEDs in kelvins, and so you'll see like in Edmonton, for example, their LED lights are kind of that yellowy color, similar to what the HPS is, or there's other places where it's almost like blue, and that's where you see the difference from about a 2200K up to a 7 to 7500K. So ATCO has landed on a 3000K, which meets the dark sky compliance, and we're the only utility in Canada right now that meets that dark sky compliance with this brand. So maybe we should turn these on so I can kind of show you guys what. Can we turn the lights off? Is that possible? Brian said he was going to set the mood in here for us.
Where's the candles?
Whoa.
Oh, right here. So we're going to start with the high pressure. So this is the ones you guys are used to seeing. And I want you to just take a look when you plug it in, and let's watch how it's like. Okay. So this is where we're used to. It's got to get kicking. We're going to see it pretty soon.
Can't see the plug now.
It's not even ready yet.
It'll take a while.
Okay, so see, now you're going to see that yellow, right? So this is what most people are used to seeing. Now wait till you see. And you can see back here, right, how much of that spray comes in the back from the HPS lights. Okay, drum roll, please. Like that. And none, so can you just unplug this one right first?
Yeah. The HPS?
Yeah, please. You've got like next to nothing back here. right? And so this is where we've had a lot of comments from residential subdivisions that they love these in front of their house. So it really just shines light where you need it to, which cuts back on the light pollution, which we can talk about a little bit, which in turn cuts back on your greenhouse gas emissions. So when you put them both on, Rick, you can really see the difference in these lighting patterns. Like, that's significant.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. They're pretty fantastic.
This will make all the people on the street happy too, because they don't have this coming into their living room. You know, 'cause we do get a lot of complaints from people saying that.
Or a
they
lot
don't
of
like
people
the street
shooting
light in
out
front of
lights.
their house.
Like, I would like to do the one, the one that
Well, they
shoots
don't
in my
require it.
backyard and when I'm sitting in my hot tub.
Well, they don't report for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So there is a significant difference, and you know, we thought that some folks would have a hard time with the change, but it's been nothing but positive feedback. So I mean, it looks very bright right here, yeah. But it provides fantastic street lighting, and now we have the option to even do our sentinel lights, so private lighting. We've got some options for that LED as well.
Candlelight meeting now, or?
Yeah.
We should always have the lights on there.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, these LED lights now basically are the same price as the HPS lights, so it was really an easy decision as far as switching over to that being our new standard. Skip a few here. So there are a number of benefits to switching to LED. So there is, like I said, the comparable in cost. Improved color rendering and lighting uniformity. So before, we used to go with roadway LED was our standard, but we couldn't have an LED light and then an HPS light and an LED light. It didn't meet roadway lighting standards. Now we can have like the one-ofs and we still meet standards. So if the community decided they didn't want to switch all their LEDs, we can still then come in and start replacing some of the heads. A big selling point on these bad boys, I'm just going to skip ahead here, is the reduced cost, and that's based on the energy. So we have our three standards, our 41 watt, an 88 watt, and 161 watt. And the way that converts, I'll show you just if you want to pop to page 9, is that for a 100 watt HPS light right now, we can convert that to a 41 watt. So there's a significant change in your consumption, right? So what you're, instead of 100, now you've got 41. For your 150 watt lights, we can put in an 88. And for your 250 watts, we can put in 161, and you'll still have the exact same light pattern, if not more. Because you guys just saw that. That was a 100 watt HPS, and right beside it is what we would replace it with an LED.
What are streetlights?
So you've got a number of different ones. We can go over that right now. On page 13. Oh, okay. Looks like this one here. See it there? So as Kathy mentioned, you have 300 and I believe it's 77 lights in town. Now our conversion package talks about 374, and I'll run through why that is. We've got a couple of lights in town here that are 400 mercury watt vapors. They're like the big kind of floodlights. You probably have it at like your arena. Those ones, we need to go and look at the application, so I haven't included them in the conversion. So here you've got 100 that are, 272 watt. So if we switch those out for 41 watts, you'd be looking at a yearly savings per light of $26.66. You have 55 150 watts that we would convert to 88, which is a savings of $28.26 per light. And then we have 250 watt that we would convert to 161. So we would be looking at a savings of just shy of $11,000 a year to convert those lights.
Now, $11,000, that's just straight electricity.
So that, I'm gonna put you backwards here a bit. 1, 2, let's go back 2 slides. So that is basically a reduction in kilowatt per month, and then there is a little component of wires charges to that. So basically about a $2 a month difference per light. based on whether that, and it goes up a bit, right, if you're going from 150 down to an 88. So there's a little tiny component that's a wires charge, and the rest is basically just usage, right, because you're going from 100 watt to a 41. Now, as our communities start to switch over to LED, because we've had quite a few communities and we anticipate more and more are going to jump on board, the overall street rate light for our ATCO service territory will start to come down because there'll be less maintenance overall. If that makes sense to you. So this is what you'll see right now. As communities start to come down, that price will go down across the board. Make sense? So we do have a few options as far as conversion prices and rates and how we can collect that. So the capital investment, and this is just on a ballpark, right? We'd have to go out in the community and do a field check to make sure everything is good to go. But we're looking at about $172,000 to convert all 374 lights in town. So that's a capital investment upfront. However, you know, there are a couple options. Some communities have chose to increase their franchise fee to collect that amount back. We have applied to the Alberta Utilities Commission to apply for what's called a multiplier. So it would be added to your streetlight rate. So let's say it's $172,000. We would divide that by X, and it would go on your streetlight bills for the next X amount of years to recover that cost, as opposed to having the upfront. So there are a couple options to look at as far as how you can fund that conversion. So outside of, you know, saving some money, if you will, on your streetlight bills, there is also the environmental savings in the amount of, you know, energy reduction and CO2 reduction. So you're looking at about 370 pounds of CO2 reduction per light. So that becomes significant when you have, you know, 374 lights. I don't know what the government's going to do as far as green credits when you're reducing your greenhouse gases, but that might be something to look at as well. Questions? I just ran through this real fast because I just knew you guys wanted to see it.
No, I was just wondering about the changeover. You're saying you're saving about 10 or 11, and the upfront cost to do it is 100 and some?
172,000 to replace them all at once, yeah.
So you're 17 years to pay that off.
In just money.
Just in savings, yeah.
Yeah, but it
It's on the
just,
savings,
yeah, that's what I was trying.
Yeah. So there, I mean, that's, you have to look at, I guess, the big picture thing. So there's the cost savings you're going to see as far as energy. Now you have to, is it important for the town to reduce their carbon footprint? I don't know that. Is it important to reduce, you know, CO2 emissions? There's lots of ways to look at it, and so I think you would have to think about all those things. And then also look at, you know, provincial funding. Is there any grants? I mean, renewables has been the buzzword for quite some time now, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see some type of funding come out. What that looks like, I don't know.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, so
What's out there?
I'm on every watch list to
Yeah.
find out about any grants that are up. And we are told by the AEMDNC that we should see something this year. I haven't seen anything yet, though, as far as street lighting. So I did send out some information to Brian earlier this year that there was some grants available for like indoor lighting for municipal buildings, but we haven't seen anything for streetlights yet.
Thank you.
Of the communities that have transitioned,
Yes.
how did they handle the costing? Like, did you see that they increased their?
It's been sort of all over the board. A few communities have increased their franchise fee. Some have just paid the capital cost up front. And one community down south gets some kind of gas rebate. I could look into it. I don't know what that's about. You apply to the government, and they were able to use that for their conversion. I don't know what that is, though. But I can look into it. Mm-hmm. Franchise fee has been the typical way that they've recovered their costs.
And where are we on franchise fee?
7.5. Because you did an increase
Just
last year.
From
last year.
6.2.
The gas funding is probably the federal gas tax.
That's what it is. Thank you.
That's a normal grant we get every year. Every municipality gets a specific amount, and it can be used for certain things.
Yes.
So they just obviously earmarked it for this project.
It's
Yeah.
like an MSI grant, except it's got different criteria.
So we're just spending it elsewhere.
Yeah. So it's not new money.
So one thing to consider though is the multiplier, and once we're expecting to hear back from the Alberta Utilities Commission very soon on what that looks like. So we could run the numbers to see, you know, how will that change your monthly bill, and give you some stats on that as well.
Councillor Panasic?
No, just one thing just running through my mind is going, how often do you change out lights now? How often do they burn out?
The bulbs?
Yeah, that you have to replace them.
They all vary, you know, because like some of the, like on these ones here, we try to do a bulb replacement on every, is it 5 years? I believe. So what we do to try to stay ahead of it is we actually put a program in place where we actually go and replace the bulbs every 5 years, because we find that's just about the end of the life for the bulbs, right? And if we do that, it actually saves more than the bulb. It'll actually starts saving the head and stuff too, because when they get weak, it makes everything want to start more. Where with the LED, like, you know, like she was saying, the warranty is really good, so yeah, so they're looking at, you know, a lot less maintenance to them as well. But I would say every community is a little bit different. I've noticed in some places where you have the lights very close to a substation, the voltage is a little higher, they burn out more. You know, where the voltage is, everything's a little farther away, they might last for 7-8 years. But you know, you can get them, I find like sometimes even on that 5-year cycle, we will be replacing bulbs, and we do get calls and so forth. So
The other thing to think about with the LED conversion is that this brand that we've picked is future use ready for a number of different really cool products. So I know that Mayor Cox is really interested in turning off the highway lights. So these are ready and capable to dim. So it's called Smart Grid. So they all talk to each other, and if you decide that, you know, at 4 a.m. I want all the lights off in the community, you go online and you click them out. Or if there's a light out, you would get an email and I would get an email. So there's some really cool technology out there. Wi-Fi mesh networking capable. So if you wanted to be your own supplier of internet, that can be done through a node basically on the top of the head. So there are some really cool features with the GE Evolve that these are ready. It's like a plug and play.
Red, yellow, and green.
Yeah.
they do that in the States.
Yeah.
They turn them, like on July 4th, they'll turn them.
Yeah, the red, white, blue, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lots of, and it's all cells.
Yeah.
Communicates to each one, it can get to the guy in the mountains even.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah. There's some really neat technology out there.
Or they turn every second one off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and those are just further cost savings,
Yeah,
right?
there's nobody's up at 4 in the morning, or from 2 to 4 in the morning, and just turn off every second off.
We recently had a presentation from a new supplier, and so they have motion sensors. So you could turn it on where just when you walk by, it lights up, or when a vehicle drives by, so that they're constantly off and they only come on when you need them. So there's definitely some pretty cool advancements in the technology, and these bad boys are set up for it. We just gotta attach the attachment.
Councillor Gilroy?
Yeah, just please tell me you'll never put Oiler colors up there. No.
I can't
I'm
say
kidding.
never.
I'm kidding. I can imagine if they get to the playoffs again next year, that'll happen. But just a quick question. I believe you said by raising our franchise fee, we're increasing our revenue by $26,000.
No. By 1% would be close to 68, I think.
Was it 68?
Yeah, it was.
Or 60.
66 almost.
66,000.
Okay, so technically 3% would be, or 1% over 3 years could technically cover the cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is an option, like I said, and communities have looked at it. I'd be interested to see what the Alberta Utilities Commission comes back with the multiplier, and so that maybe you can do it over a longer period of time, and we'll see how that all works out.
You said that last year our total franchise revenue was $180,000.
182.
Okay, so how does that translate to 66,000 for just a 1% when you're already at 6?
No, if you were to increase your fees by 1%.
But if you raise it by 1% and it's already at 6, and you raise it by 1%, it's 1/6.
No, you guys raised your, franchise
So it's
fee.
1/7 then, so you take that amount by 1/7, and that's not 66,000.
So it's based on your distribution revenue. So what we're forecasting is based on this year's distribution revenue, what a 1% increase would be. So there was $2.9 million in distribution fees, so 1% more would equal that. We have the I can send you the
Yeah,
calculation sheet.
please.
Yeah.
Because
What,
something's not working in my mind here.
what is your email?
treasurer@iqaury.ca.
You bet. And I think Brian probably has that from last year, which we could use as well, but.
Any other questions from?
Seen the light.
You've seen the Finally, sat long enough beside
Oh,
Councillor
yeah.
Gilroy, and he has seen the light. You
Well,
have
what
a
do you guys-
convert.
What do you think of the lights? I mean,
I think it's awesome. I think it's a great light.
Armin, you're driving me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. I like the lighting
mhm.
and the longevity and the less power draw is where we have to go with our energy dropping,
Yeah.
right? We have to make these smart choices. I like it myself. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love the environmental impact. If we can
Mhm.
make a difference, that would be awesome.
I'll shoot you out
And
the
it-
numbers of how much you guys would save annually if we switched them all over. It's a lot.
And maybe there's a way to sort of inform the community as to the options, so we can see
Yeah.
sort of the response, because, you know, you're right, you don't know each community and how they feel about their carbon footprint, but I think that there may be more significance in letting people make their
Absolutely.
own sort of call on that and
You
give
know,
us
in
an
some
opinion.
communities, it wasn't about the monthly cost, it was about, you know, going green, right? And that an initiative and a strategic initiative was that, you know, that was something you want to do, and it was a good a starting base, right? So I can absolutely send out a bit more information as far as what that looks like if you were to convert them all, and what your CO2 reduction would be like. And then we'll see if we can get that information on the multiplier, because that might swing the decision.
And you can keep us on your watch list for when you
I
find
will.
that.
I've been harassing them.
Councillor Bartley.
Is there any, as far as ACO goes, like, say we make a plan and we say, you know what, we only want to cut the town in quarters.
Yep.
Can you do a quarter at a time, like quarter one year, quarter the next year?
We can absolutely
You know what I
phase
mean?
it.
And then split it out that way. As far as the electrical side of things, is that an issue with a certain section being done at a time and not the others?
No issue. Like I mentioned, with these lights, we can do, you know, an HPS and an LED and an HPS. So we
Right.
could absolutely split the community up in fours or in half, and we can phase it over X amount of years. Yeah, you betcha.
Okay.
Do we have sections of town that are already like old enough that we should really be looking at making that change anyway?
So
Like-
we'll know that once the DAVID inspection is
Right,
done. So
okay.
that's happening this year. So we'll see how many of those lights fail. And based on historical data, you're looking at 1%, which somebody that's really quick at math, 374 lights. So 3.74 lights, and then 3.5. So you'll see some changes for sure this year.
Right.
When those changes happen, so they do go to
Yep.
LED?
They do.
They do
We've
automatically.
completely phased out HPS. We're not buying them
So there will
anymore.
not be one more bulb or one more done when they have one to replace that LED now.
You betcha.
So if you want it free, you gotta burn a whole light bulb right now.
Wow.
Start
Shooting.
shooting. Start shooting. Slingshots work too.
What's going on in High Prairie?
Yeah.
You've been losing lights like.
I'm not being phoned in for 2 weeks.
Shouldn't have told them.
So if you'd like, I can put together a plan, a couple different options. So if we were to split it up in 4 years.
Good idea.
Yeah, for sure. And we can pop up a few around town if you'd like, if you want to put something out in the paper, and maybe you can gather some feedback.
That'd be nice for the community to see.
Right,
Mhm.
and they have something to reference, and they know what you're talking about, just like what we got the opportunity to see here.
We'll put up a couple in various locations around town, and we'll let you know where they are. And then if you get any feedback, then we would love to hear it. Yeah.
All right?
Just one clarification, did you say that with these new ones, if we went with running fiber optics, for example. With the
Yeah.
broadband, we'd be able to
So
piggyback
it's-
on top
it's
of it?
not
Or
it's not fiber optics, it's Wi-Fi mesh networking. So basically you just have like a router. Like you know how you have a router in your house? The light can act as a router and then send the signal out. So I did mention it to Linda the last time we talked, because I knew you guys were kind of looking into that. So she did seem, she seemed really interested. So it really is just a little attachment that goes on the top of the streetlight.
Just a Wi-Fi router on each, like.
Yeah, yeah. We don't have any communities in Alberta that have gone that way, but there are some in Ontario, and I know that the RMWB was looking into that option as well. I don't know how far they've made with it, but they were really interested, and so is Valley View. Marty Paradine is all over that, so.
What's the price difference on that? What would that be per
So,
light?
so I don't know the cost, I'd have to look into that. So it basically is like an attachment that
Yeah.
would be on the light. I couldn't even hazard a guess what that would cost, but I can look into
Okay,
it.
yeah.
Like with the Wi-Fi, though, you don't have to have them on everybody, do you? It's just in certain spots.
Depends on what you want to do with it,
And
right? Whether
coverage,
you're
I
gonna
would think, yeah.
If you're gonna.
I just need more government funding if it's.
Possibly, yeah.
It's essential service of Wi-Fi up here.
So the one thing that we were, that Marty and I had ran into was that to be able to offer that service, whoever your provider is in the area, they have first right of refusal. So if we would have to go to them and say, you know, the town of High Prairie wants to look at this Wi-Fi mesh networking. Are you interested? And they would have to decline before. And most areas, they haven't been interested, that is what I've heard, but that is just a clause to think about.
Interesting concept.
We can do that for the Wi-Fi.
Good idea.
We're not, right now, we're not really looking at Wi-Fi in town. We're looking at
Fiber.
fiber to the house. So that wouldn't really be,
Conflicting.
Well, it's another
it wouldn't be that
another thing to
attractive, I
consider.
don't think. Well, depending on where it ends up.
Mm-hmm.
Would it give you the ability to enhance on the exterior to bring that signal out further to the county? Like, because we're not really looking at being able to lay fiber everywhere. Do you see that as an advantage?
For the town?
Yeah, the county lights.
But you got a little a router on top of the street light's not gonna help the county.
No, not even in those areas.
No.
Just for whichever
Just
part.
even like Ireland and his lack of services.
Aw, thanks, Deb. Thanks for thinking of me.
So it is neat though that they're ready to go, right? That those products are out there, and it's really easy just to attach it and have at her. So we could, you know, if you guys were really interested in, you know, say the smart grid, there, you know, we could look at if there's a possibility of some type of partnership or pilot. We don't have the smart grid facilities anywhere in our service territories yet. Now they would have to be close, right? So you'd have to do like maybe a section because they need to be able to talk to each other, but there's all kinds of options that we can look at.
Especially with the lighting patterns up here.
You betcha.
Does anybody have anything else for Amanda?
Oh,
Vern?
With the smart grid and being a pilot project, how much would you guys fund of that?
I don't know.
You would look at that though, like you did the pilot project in Jasper with the LEDs, right?
Yeah, we would look at it for sure.
Just so council knows.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I just jotted down, and I'm wondering if then with the province, like, would you be able to maybe enter into an
Possibly,
agreement?
right?
Yeah,
This
but
is
so they're
all
talking
sort of
lots of green.
new-
Yeah, they're talking lots of green now, so
Yeah.
maybe.
It's all new territory for us, other than, I mean, the LED, but all these new products and services. So we need to try them out somewhere. So I just,
For sure.
I don't know what that looks like, what the split would be, but I definitely would be the advocate for sure to do something like that. And
Yeah, it might be a great partnership and a good opportunity to present something to the government. Yeah.
Yeah.
Starting with Arlen's place.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Anybody have anything else? Well,
Okay.
thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me, and
Very
I'll send
informative.
you out an email with some of that follow-up information.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks for
very
having
much.
us.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess. 10-minute recess? 10-minute recess.